Hi, everyone. My name is Julie Kim, and I am the William H. Harrison Jr. Professor and Chair of the School of Architecture. So happy to be here this morning with all of you. I'm a licensed architect, and I also direct the Flourishing Communities Collaborative, which is an academic lab, a research and design lab that's focused on equity, social justice, and community engagement. You'll hear a little bit more about that later on in the presentation. I think, one of the things that I hope that you take away from hearing all of us speak to you this morning is that you get the sense that with architecture or with anything, you're able to, you just fall in love with what you're doing, but you also want to be able to have fun and take time for yourself. And you'll see, we'll share various aspects of what it is to be a student here in the School of Architecture, but all the things that make it special to be in Atlanta as well. I was thinking about what I wanted to share with you all this morning in this brief introduction, and I was recalling a conversation I had with one of our students who shared this thought with me, and she said, being a student at Georgia Tech is being exposed to an enormously diverse, unique, and intelligent group of people who are constantly chasing after their dreams, taking the extra steps to succeed, and enjoying every minute of it. It is truly an inspiring place to be with a multitude of disciplines. And she just shared this with me as she was reflecting on her time and unprompted. And it was just kind of a lovely sentiment that I think really encapsulates the kind of broad set of experiences that we offer here in the School of Architecture. I think ultimately our students carry a lifelong curiosity about social and cultural meaning of the built environment. We have a passion about being part of improving the future, being part of shaping that built landscape. Certainly, here at the Georgia Institute of Technology, we think critically about technology. We think about how to apply new tools to architecture and the challenges of building a better world. And then ultimately, our graduates leverage what they've learned in sustainability, resilience, computational design, collaborative social engagement, and they succeed in a wide range of professions, including architecture, urban design, urban planning, technology, business. And you'll hear more about that as my colleagues share various aspects of the program. But ultimately, it's an exciting time here in the School of Architecture at Georgia Tech. And we're really excited to share all of this with you. I'm happy to be joined by faculty and program directors for our graduate programs, as well as our academic advisors. You'll hear from all of them this morning. But first, let me go ahead and introduce David Yoakum, who is the director of the Master of Architecture program. So, David, I hand it over to you.
Thanks, Julie. I really appreciate it. I thought, so first I should introduce myself. So I'm David Yoakum. I am also a licensed architect. I'm a practitioner of 25 years here in Atlanta. I have a firm called Buildings, BLDGS, and I'm also a longtime teacher of about 17 or 18 years here at Georgia Tech. I'm recently appointed as the director of the Master of Architecture program, and I'm super excited. And I kind of continue on Julie's enthusiasm about some of the updates and exciting changes we're making to our program to really suit the ambitions of our students. Before we start, I thought we should just introduce everybody who's speaking today, just because we're going to flow, and I want you to know who people are once they start speaking. So I'm going to pass it to Daniel to introduce himself, and we can go from there.
Good morning. I'm Daniel Barlikin. I'm the associate chair of the School of Architecture. I'm also the director of the undergraduate program, and an associate professor. And my work has been focusing on digital design in connection with design build. Might pass it over to Sonnet next.
Sonnet, we can't hear you yet.
Yeah, now I think it's better. Thanks. Good morning, everyone, and thanks, Daniel. My name is Sonit Dafna, and I direct the MS and PhD programs in the school. And I've been teaching at Tech for about 20 years when I was a student before then, so I have had a long perspective on the program and the school. I've seen it go through many changes. My own work is concerned mostly with research in architecture in areas like building morphology, interpretation of buildings, and human outcomes of buildings. So we'll talk more about that when we follow up later. Can I pass it on to Robin now?
Hi, I'm Robin Tucker. I'm the Academic Advising Manager in the School of Architecture. I've been here quite a while, and I'm happy that you're here. And I will likely be probably the first face and first person that you speak to. And many of you I'm seeing on this list I've already heard from. So I can help you with logistics once you decide to apply to Georgia Tech. And some of you I know already have. I've seen applications started. So feel free to reach out to me. My other advisor, who is my right hand, is Nitra Wisdom. And I'm not sure if Nitra is on here yet. If you are, Nitra, let me know. If not, she will be shortly.
Okay. Thank you, Robin.
Uh-huh.
So let's get started. So the graduate programs that we have here at Georgia Tech, we have the School of Architecture, we have 4 of them. We have a Master of Architecture program. That's either a 2 or a 3.5-year program. We have a Master of Science in Architecture, a Master of Science in Urban Design, and a PhD. And you'll hear about those today. Just to kick things off, our Master of Architecture is our largest program. It's a professional preparation degree program. So if you are interested in pursuing the discipline of architecture from a practice standpoint, this is your program. And this is kind of the core engine of what we do in preparation of students. So it really prepares you for tomorrow's professional practice. You get a comprehensive education of foundational skills, integrated and collaborative design experiences, and we really work to expose you to timely and relevant challenges of contemporary design and building. I like to say that GT architects graduate with training and the experiences to make an architecture, but architecture with meaning in the world. We really strive to expose you to make those differences. And that's what makes our program exciting. We have core values that we really implement in our curriculum. And just to touch on those, of course, design, that's critical. Learning and knowledge, we are imparting as best we can the core principles of how you train to become a practicing architect. We're in the Georgia Institute of Technology, which is one of the foremost Tier 1 research institutions in our country and really in the world. So everything we do is infused with technology and the embracing of it as tools for advancement of our knowledge. But it's really important also that we talk about you as future practitioners, and that's about entrepreneurship. We want you to be active and we want you to be engaged, and we facilitate that in our program. Then these last 2 are super important. Connection. We want you to understand that really architecture is about relationships, and we embrace our community and the diversity and inclusion that is the foundation of our program. So I really want you to think about those things as you're looking at various programs. Those are highlights of what we consider our core values. I'm going to pass it now to Sonnet. Sonnet, just need to turn your mic on. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you, David.
Sure.
Sorry about that. So we have, besides the professional degree programs, Georgia Tech has some very vibrant and lively programs. There are 3 of them in sort of the background knowledge that architects, in thinking about the background knowledge that architects need. And basically, they are intended to draw people into a career of research or technical help in design programs. So the entry-level program is the Master of Science in Architecture, and it has 2 functions. One hand, it can introduce people who want to have a career devoted to research and analysis and design, and this can be both in the academia and in the industry. And for those people, this is an opportunity to begin to learn some fundamental techniques, some advanced knowledge about the way information can be collected about architecture, and then there is the other path, which is people use this as a stepping stone to do further advanced work in research, and that is for a PhD. So students who come into the Master of Science in program typically end up working in three areas of concentration. One is design computation, the other one is design and health, and the third is high performance building, which has really to do with the physical performance of buildings, energy modeling, and so on. But the area of concentrations are just meant to give students a general guidance. The expectation is that people who come in this program will come with some core interest already formed, and they have the opportunity to shape the curriculum in the way they like. They can take courses both in the school, in our college, but also beyond in the institute to really get the kind of skills they need to do this. Can we go to the next slide? The next, yeah. So the second the program we have is Master of Science in Urban Design, and that's a more specialized program that basically helps to create, connect work done, theoretical work in urban design, that is design that is at urban and regional scales, to practice. So this program does feature studios, and people work in various practical problems. Right now, the concerns are, for example, ecology and environment are the two very big concerns here. But also people who are here, who work in this program, are interested in the emergence of new technologies. What would happen, for example, if we have self-driving cars? How will that affect not just our driving practices, but also the shape of our cities? So this is a program that keeps abreast of all the new developments and tries to sort of see how those can be incorporated into design practice that is just beyond the buildings. And then the doctoral program in architecture is a storied program. It is one of the earliest doctoral programs in the country in architecture schools. Those doctoral education in architecture is a relatively late phenomenon. It starts mostly in the middle of the last century. And this program itself was established in 1982. Uh, as you'll see some of the slides later, there's a huge variety of work in that people do. We have 5 areas of concentration currently, and we also have a very active student body who produce, for example, the two posters you see there are symposia that they put together every 2 years that attract about 100 people, 100 graduate students, doctoral students every 2 years to prepare things. We'll learn more about this program a bit later, and you can always go to our website for more information. Thanks.
Robin?
Okay, I've been asked to talk a little bit about the people in the School of Architecture. David, you can go ahead to the next slide. Our students come from various backgrounds. It's about as wide-ranging as one side of the world to the other, but that makes it even more interesting for everyone. You've got so many people's points of view there. Um, we I'm going to give you just a little bit about the application process. I know some of you have already begun that, and since we're talking about students, we have student ambassadors who are nominated by faculty. This would be something that you might aspire to be when you come to Georgia Tech. These folks help us with almost everything, from recruiting to helping us with presentations, helping us with graphic design, all kinds of things. And these folks are also at your disposal, and you can locate some of them on the website to contact if you want the student point of view when you're applying. Your application will be due December 31st. And between now and then, you should be working on your portfolio. You should be worrying about getting your recommendation letters. We require 3. We will review with 2 because we know sometimes people are busy and yours may not get in. We do not in the MARC program this time require a GRE. So that's a sort of a new thing. It's been just the last couple of years, so you don't have to worry about that piece. And again, reach out to Nitra and I, or any of these student ambassadors, and you're going to see some other students here online that you'll be able to reach out to. This is our Student Advisory Council, and every group in SOA, both undergrad and grad, elect a representative from their studio or from the PhD program, the MS program, MSUD program, and they meet with the chair and the associate chair, and usually either Nitra or I sit in on those meetings once a month. And this is the opportunity for you to connect with your studio mates to see what might be concerning to you or if you want to make a change, if you want to propose something, we're there to listen. And many of our good things in the School of Architecture have come out of this group. And I'm going to turn it, I think Netra Wisdom is here. She's our other advisor I spoke about earlier, and she's going to talk just a little bit about our student orgs. Netra?
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, so we have 5 student orgs. One of them is the PhD, which is Concave. But the 4 you see listed on this slide, AIAS, I think that is our largest student organization. Equity in Architecture, which used to be Women in Architecture, the National Organization of Minority Architecture Students, and ECO, which is our newest student organization. All of them work together to help create an active culture, an active student culture. They hold events, including networking opportunities, portfolio and resume reviews, social events. They even do yoga in the hammock sometimes. They have regular and general board meetings that you are welcome to attend, even if you are not a member. So we encourage you to get involved when you can.
Thank you,
you.
Netra.
Daniel?
Yeah, so the other side of people's chapter here is faculty. And as David mentioned, Georgia Tech is a tier 1 research institution. So faculty really probably only teaches about 40%. And the rest of the time is devoted to research. And here we see like an overview of publications from the last years. And I think you can see that there is a variety of topics. For example, Michael Murphy published a book on justice and beauty, as well as another one on health. And it goes from, it scales, it goes up to urban topics. 3 books here by Ellen Dunham Jones on retrofitting suburbia. So next to that, we have a group of young faculty. So we have a couple of years ago, we created this program called the Next Fellows. So these are young faculty that come in for 2 years, and they bring in new impulses to the school. It's set up in a way that this becomes a stepping stone, usually for them to go to a tenure track position at another institution. And but they develop their research agenda while they're here for 2 years, and students participate in these in form of seminars. Then another important part of the school is the Portman Critic. Last year we had Big as Portman Critic, and Kaiwa Bachmann was leading 6 studios at the advanced 2 level in conjunction with the work of Big, focusing on reusing neglected urban infrastructure. Next. Another important part of the school is the Venture Chair, which is a 3 to 5 year appointment for an exceptional practitioner. Michael Murphy from Mass Design is the current Venture Chair. And these practitioners, they come for this time frame and study like specific topics, in his case, memorials and health, and expose students in DNR studios to these ideas. Please.
Thanks, Daniel. We thought we would just take just a bit of time to dive into some of the curriculum that you would be exposed to during your studies here, because that's really the foundation of your experience. So, as I mentioned, our Master of Architecture program is really the engine of this collection of programs. It's our largest pool. And I wanted to give you an overview of what you would experience that is maybe distinctive about Georgia Tech as opposed to other schools you might be considering. In your first year, it's a 1.5 year or like a 1.25. It's a 3-semester sequence. And it begins with an immersive summer session in architecture and design, where you're really learning the fundamentals with your hands at the desk with our instructors. And across that core experience, it concludes with the full training and tools necessary to design digitally, including an introduction to our digital fabrication and robotics lab. So that first year in the 3.5-year program, you really get the whole arc of experience about how to become both a practicing architect eventually, but giving you those foundational tools. And it's supplemented with courses in design, history, theory, construction technology, media and modeling, and it prepares you for the second year. The next year, we call it our advanced architecture studios, and we get an influx of 2-year students. Those are students who already have a background in architecture. So there's this whole new energy that comes in. And that's really exciting because you've taken your fundamentals and now you're applying them to advanced architectural topic and scales, including things such as multifamily housing, sustainability, community buildings, and even principles of urban design in one of our courses. So you're taking on complex projects, and it's all about integration of multiple programmatic and technical requirements. You're learning how to research and design in both group and individual formats. So you're not just on your own, you're working with your classmates. And as I like to say, you'll often learn more from working with your classmates than you will with professors, because that's where you're collaborating and the ideas are sparking. That, of course, is supported by additional supplementary courses such as theory, structures, and integrated building design. An example of one of the really exciting studios that you get in the second year, whether you're a 3.5-year student or a 2 years, is our Portman Prize Studio. This is a flagship experience in our program now. It really aims to foster design excellence, creativity, and technical proficiency. And what we do in this is we bring in a named critic at a national or international scale, and they bring a bunch of consultants and engineers and collaborators and specialists, and they take on big, complex topics. So last year, or in 2022, it was the Mississippi Delta flooding down in the lower part of our country in the Delta. And it was about structures, and it was about sustainability and integration. And these are really exciting studios, and it's a competition format. So there are even prizes at the end, cash prizes. So it's super exciting. You know, when you go into the year 3, it's really where you're propelling yourself into what might be your individual direction in your practice. And we call this design and research. You're working with senior faculty researchers, and you're focusing on specific topics. You're applying research to design and vice versa. And this is where you get to choose your studio at level 3. So it's really individually articulated. An example of that is the Venturelette chair. And as Daniel mentioned, our current chair is Michael Murphy, and he's taking on just some incredible topics. Last year, it included a study in Japan of Noguchi's memorial after the dropping, or commemorating the dropping of the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So these are typically very high ambition studios where there's travel, there's an engagement with communities, and very applicable and timely topics. We also have very involved local examples of our design and research. Here's an example of one. It's called West Side Connector, where students working with other disciplines designed a bridge to span over roads between 2 parts of the tech campus. And this is a real project, and it not only did students come up with a design, but the idea is that these will be implemented. So our design and research studios span both global projects and local, but they're all real and they're all very exciting. We supplement the design studio with other coursework that is very integrated. So you're going to be taking courses in design and climate change, and you're also going to be taking courses in integrated building systems, where it's not just about architecture, but incorporates structure, heating, ventilating, and air, skin systems, and other life safety aspects that play into buildings. And you model these 3-dimensionally to understand how buildings come together. And with this, I'm going to, I think, oh, let me go back one. I'll touch on this slide, student competitions. One other component is that it's not just your coursework that is an exciting part of your experience here, but it's how you choose to spend that extra time that you have to push your own education further. So there are competitions such as a ULI student competition, which is a national competition for urban design. And Georgia Tech and our teams have done incredibly well over these last few years, winning top prizes. So we encourage you to get involved in that. I'm going to pass this off now to Daniel to talk about our research labs.
Yep. So our research labs are really linked to, I guess, all our programs, but in some ways, I think they're more linked to the MS program and the PhD program. So we're seeing here is a digital fabrication lab, which is a very large lab, almost 20,000 square feet, that houses various fabrication tools, waterjet cutters, CNC machines, and robotics. Next. And okay, one back maybe. So what we saw, yeah, we see here is one example that was produced by Tristan Al-Haddad for a sculpture in that was installed in Paris. See in the background we see Chumi's Folies in the Parc de la Villette, and this was basically large scale, yeah, xylophone, so that musicians could actually play on it, made from fiber reinforced concrete. And this is one, I guess, example of the scale that we are looking for at the DFL. Next. Or here another example by Russell Gentry, who is specialized in composites, and he's been looking into how to reuse these wind turbines that can be up to 150 meters long, but are very hard to recycle. And he's been looking with architecture students and how to repurpose these large-scale objects as structural elements. And next. This is one of our also design computation labs, the Shape Computation Lab, led by Thanos Economou. And this Shape Computation Lab really focuses on mathematics, mathematical background of geometries. They developed this this tool that we see here, the Shape Machine, which allows you to compute geometries in a novel way. Right, so you're defining, you can see on the left, you're defining operations, and then allows you to add those to an existing geometry. Next. And the Digital Building Lab, which is currently led by Russell Gentry, that goes back to Charles Eastman, you can say is the grandfather of building information modeling, is really looking into how to combine various disciplines on campus, architecture, engineering, construction, and the operations industry, and work with together with practitioners to create novel research in this area. Next. I'm handing it over to Sonnet.
Thanks, Daniel. So another research lab that we have was started by one of our faculty members, Craig Zimring, who is now a professor emeritus, is the Syntegrate lab, and they do a lot of work in health and design, and they have a full scale, they have a facility to make full scale prototypes, for example, of a room in which they can monitor lighting and the effect of lighting on people, or they can do things like study wayfinding and all that. So they have large facility and they get a number of projects based on development in two areas. One is the development of healthy environments, and the other one is health facilities. Next. And then this is a lab that is that also has been very active in the last few years. It's a high performance building lab that was established by Gottfried Augenbroe and continued now by Professor Tarek Raka. And they do a lot of work on energy modeling and simulation. And they're also doing things like documentation of buildings for energy modeling through using various kinds of technologies, robotic technologies and automated cameras and things like that. So, and you can see that the slide shows that sometimes they also do things like they participated in a student design challenge competition or the residential division of solar decathlon, for which they won the first prize last year. Next. And this is, Julie's not here, right? Okay, so I'll just speak for Julie. This is a lab established by our director, Julie Kim, and it's called the Flourishing Communities Collaborative. And basically they are working with community engagement in the way that designers can come together with especially underprivileged communities and help create environments that serve them better. We all know that people in such communities don't have access to resources, government policies, and things like that. So they are the people who basically try to engage the community in order to activate them to find their own sort of ways into it. And they're associated often with studios, design studios, and other people get to participate in this lab. So this lab has a fairly large outreach within the school as well. Lots of opportunities of participation. Next. And there is a new area that is where we have some faculty who have started to develop, and that is historians who are interested in high sort of very advanced technology in order to do documentation. So for example, the technology that people are looking at now is recording large, very large area historical environment using LiDAR technologies that allows you to create 3D models of building just by photographing them. And then those can be then studied historically and look at the changes that have happened through history. So this is called the Heritage Building Information Modeling Lab. It combines our work in building information modeling along with historical documentation. And it's one of the few areas in the places in the country where this is possible. It's led by Daniel Wilkins and with a strong collaboration from Russell Gentry. And the two people listed here, Zunshan Lu and Botao Lu, are both PhD students working with them. Next. And apart from these labs, there is also a lot of work being done. Maybe we can go one slide back. One done by students. A lot of their research. So there are just a couple of ways to give you a sense of the kind of project the students end up doing, often for their qualifying papers or for their doctoral dissertations. So on the right-hand side, you see two projects by students. The first one was a doctoral thesis in which they were using SAFe computational rules to basically create a software that can automatically take architect sketches and convert them into plans, even though those things are not being built. The project below does modeling of, it's a simulation, agent-based simulation of the way people sort of navigate through different floor plans in order to understand what aspects of the floor plan can basically change the way you encounter buildings. And on the next slide, you see projects done at an urban scale. In fact, even more than a regional scale. So there was a doctoral dissertation last, if you can go back, by Yasser Al-Masri, which won the Best Thesis Award that had to do with energy modeling at a regional scale. And below that, you have a project in urban design where they are doing statistical modeling to understand how it's the layout of areas with different built-up densities and do some predictions with that. Yeah, next. I think I'm done with this part. Is it Daniel again?
Yep. I'm going to talk briefly about international education, study abroad. So we have three programs: Modern Architecture, Modern Cities, Greece and Italy, and Design, Develop, Build. Next. So the first program is the Modern Architecture, Modern Cities program. And this program is open predominantly to ARC students, but also to MSUD students. And for the Masters in Urban Design students, it becomes it's a key element in their program. it looks at cities at an urban scale, but also at architecture in these cities. So the current iteration visits New York, then goes to Paris, Berlin, and from Berlin to Hamburg and Prague, and then back to Berlin to Amsterdam and Rotterdam, and then ends in London. So there's an 8-week summer program that exposes students to a wide range of urban models, contemporary architecture, and even art in these cities. Next. The second program is the Greece and Italy program, which is really a program that focuses on the history of Greek and Italian architecture. So as you can see, it begins in Italy, from Venice to Florence to Rome, to Sorrento and its surrounding with Pompeii and Naples, and then transitions to Greece. This is a 7 weeks program, and its focus is really on history. It includes not only students from architecture, but also other students from other disciplines at Georgia Tech. Next. And the third program is the Design, Develop, Build program, which is a program where students design buildings for public buildings for underserved communities in Africa. Projects include projects in South Africa, Ghana, and Zimbabwe. And this is in collaboration with 2 European universities, the RWTH Aachen and PPSA. Next. I believe.
Oops, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Okay, we are very focused on what you are very focused on, which at the end, everyone is doing this because they love architecture and want a career in architecture. We are very successful at Georgia Tech in connecting you with practitioners, allowing you to explore various types of architecture firms. And we do this through several things. One is our career fair. We have, I think, yeah, that's it. Every year we have a career fair in the spring, and it's large. They do table interviews. You come with your resume, which we have workshops from some of our student orgs who help you get that together. We also have a full-time career services person in the College of Design who helps facilitate a lot of this. And you can see here, this is just some of the firms who have participated in the last few years. They're not all Atlanta firms. I know some of you will want to work elsewhere. And we do have people who fly in for this fair. Usually we share it a bit with city and regional planning and with our urban design folks, because many of the larger firms use all of those. So you would be eligible your very first year to go to the career fair, and we encourage it. Every time you present yourself, your portfolio, your work, and you talk about what you love, you get better at it. And so by the time you're out of Georgia Tech with your master's or your PhD, you're going to be an expert at interviewing and dealing with getting a job in the real world. Next. This is just some more photos of our career fair. The practicum program was set up so that it was a shadowing experience that happens over spring break each year. And we have some undergrads, upper level undergrads, and grad students who participate in this. And what this essentially is a way for you to shadow someone in a particular city, a particular type of architecture firm for that spring break week. And these are just some of the places our students have gone recently. We have lots of connections to a lot of the firms in the US in particular. And what we ask you about the beginning of January, or maybe even a little before that, where would you like to go during spring break, and who would you like to shadow? What type of firm, what city? And you're responsible for your housing, but you may have a relative in Denver and you may want to go to Denver because you can crash on their couch for a week. You are responsible for getting yourself there, but we will make the connection for you and introduce you to the firm. And hopefully it's in an area that you want to explore in architecture. So that's one way that we get you connected. And sometimes these students build relationships over that spring break. And I've had some who go back in the summer and do an internship in one of the places that they've experienced. And it can lead to full-time employment. The biggest thing is selling yourself, letting them understand what you're interested in, and they'll come back to you in most cases. Next. We are very focused on entrepreneurship, and we do have the Scheller College of Business actually has an entrepreneurship certificate that you can work on. They also have an MBA that some of our students do a few courses in while they're still in the MARC, and then they complete that once they're done with their studios. They do give you a little advanced placement for some of the courses you took in architecture, so it doesn't take you quite as long to get an MBA. And that's just a partner program that comes right along with your MARC. Or you could do it with an MS or a PhD. They will take you too. Okay, next.
I'll pick this up, Robin.
All right,
So,
thank you.
you know, we know people are concerned and interested in how the school that they choose propels them into their career with prestige. Let's be honest. And it's important to understand that Georgia Tech is very highly ranked, not just as a Tier 1 research institute in all of its engineering and computing, but also in design. Our program is number 5 in the US and it's number 18 worldwide. And this is one of the reasons why we get a lot of really strong applications, both domestically and internationally. So if that's important to you, and it's important to a lot of people, please understand that, take it into consideration. And it's one of the reasons why we're excited about what we do here. Just to touch on Atlanta and your experience here, because depending on which program you choose, you will be here for either a year and a half, or 3.5 years. And this type of graduate and doctoral study is also about coming into your own even further in the place where you're living. You're not just in the classroom and the studio, even though you are in the classroom and studio a lot. So if you don't know Atlanta, it's a city of neighborhoods. It does have a downtown, but it's ringed by an immense number of very diverse neighborhoods. It's a city in a forest. It's a thriving commercial hub, and it's a nexus of international transportation. You've probably heard of the Atlanta airport as the busiest in the world. It's the living laboratory for Georgia Tech and the School of Architecture faculty. Just a couple examples here. I'll just go back. This is, of course, is our skyline, but we have a long history of very well-established practicing architects. This is John Portman's Marriott Marquis. If you come to Atlanta, you have to take a John Portman tour and experience the awe of some of his buildings in and around Atlanta. We have some very collection of distinguished buildings. Here's an example. It's a High Museum of Art expansion by Renzo Piano Building Workshop. We have a strong cultural landscape, a recent building, a Civil Center for Civil and Human Rights in downtown Atlanta, a part of our city that's gone through a tremendous change in the last 40 and 50 years. You know, a prime example of how Atlanta is changing very dynamically and how Georgia Tech is part of that is the Atlanta Beltline. If you don't know it, Google it after this, and you're going to be exposed to a fascinating project. This is a 22-mile loop around all of Atlanta, which is a conversion of old rail lines to trails for bikes and running, and also an incredible amount of development. This was developed as a thesis project by one of our own graduates, Ryan Gravel. So we have projects in this city at the building scale and at the urban scale that are directly affected by Georgia Tech architecture, urban design graduates. The culture of Atlanta is incredibly diverse. And it's a very exciting and dynamic one. It has music, film, food, sports, and art. It's one of the homes of hip hop music and international artists like Outkast, T.I., Usher, Childish Gambino, and so on. It's often referred to as the Atlanta of the South. I think there's more, at this time, there's more film production in Atlanta than anywhere else in this country, having to do with the facilities, tax credits, and kind of the cultural dynamo that is taking place in Atlanta now. A lot of shows are filmed in and around Atlanta that you just stumble upon while you're living here. The development that is taking place in our city is pretty profound. Here's an example. This is Pond City Market. It's a renovation of an old Sears warehouse that's turned into a thriving retail and residential hub on the Beltline that I just discussed. Of course, we're a destination for major events. This is a new recent construction of our Mercedes-Benz Stadium in the heart of downtown. Georgia Tech, zooming in a bit, you might say it's kind of this thriving, dynamic green spot in the middle of the city. And it's quite a intellectual refuge. It's 400 wooded acres with over 400 trees, and it's directly adjacent to the urban core of Atlanta. It's made up of both historic and modern buildings. And it's integrated into this really beautiful landscape. One of the things you'll realize living in and around Georgia Tech is how much the campus landscape plays a role in the experience. It's a very specific charge of our planning and design team that the presence of nature in the natural environment is part of the experience of Georgia Tech. We have some pretty incredible examples of advanced sustainable design. This is the Condita Building for Innovative Sustainable Design. It's the first living building challenge facility in the Southeast, and it's won an incredible number of awards and acclaim for an institutional grade building that is extremely advanced in its sustainable planning and function. And we see buildings on our campus as living examples of the ethos that we teach in our design studio. This is the interior of that Condita building. It's a mass timber building. Zooming in a little further, the School of Architecture. We have some amazing facilities here. This is the Hinman Research Building. It's the home of our graduate programs, widely recognized for its design excellence with numerous professional and industry awards. It's an adaptive reuse of an old high bay lab with a gantry crane that runs up and down the length of it. And we've converted it to this open studio environment. It's a very theatrical space. You see students all the time. You see your classmates working. It's high energy, and it's built to enable collaboration, which is a fundamental of our program. This is your home for the time you spend here. And it's how you get to know your students. It is how you learn from your fellow students, and you develop lifelong friends and collaborators while you're here. So we're going to zoom out here and step back. And as we conclude here, we invite you to join us as you consider the landscape of options for your graduate studies. You can join us on social media, of course. Instagram and LinkedIn are our two primary conduits right now. But we specifically recommend that you come and join us in person if you're at all able to. We have a series of Friday open studios coming up on October 20th, October 27th, and November 3rd. We will welcome you in, and we will walk you around the studios and introduce you to both what we're doing and making, but also the students who are here and who they are. So if you haven't jotted these down, go to our website. These dates are published, and you can enroll and register for these, and we'll coordinate with you. So we're now at the point where we're happy to take any questions. Sonnet, Robin, Daniel, or myself about any aspect of the program that you might have. Please feel free. And don't worry if you're the first. We welcome any questions you might have. And I will say also, if you have any questions that you don't want to just ask publicly here, I would say email Robin or Nitra. Their email addresses are on our website.
We have a question on the chat, I think.
Oh, we do. Okay, great. Let's see what that is.
From Amber.
The question is, do you have, and this comes from Amber, thank you, Amber, do you have any recommendations for being a successful applicant? Well, I'll start, but Robin is our expert. It depends, first of all, being a successful applicant is being honest and putting as much energy into your application as you possibly can. Don't hold back. Tell us about who you are. Share with us your experiences in the writing and in your portfolio, and really take care to put in your work when you submit it something that's edited. That's important. We look very closely at what you submit, especially the portfolio, for example, in the Master of Architecture program. And I recommend that you spend a good bit of time on it and get some external eyes on it to iterate it and make it strong before you submit it. That's one idea. Robin, do you want to offer any others?
My best advice is start early. If you're thinking about applying, you probably should already have logged in and at least set up a login and a password. You can go back and forth into the application as many times as you like, as long as you don't hit the submit button. That will give you some ideas about, what you might want to write. You might go in and do one question today, think about another and write that another day. Use the time wisely between now and December 31st. Have some people, I know we recommend this to our students, have some people, some faculty in your program, take a look at your portfolio and give you a little feedback before you submit it. You want to understand that, we have several people on the submissions committee. Not one individual faculty member makes a decision to either accept or deny you. So you want to sort of make sure you're playing to all kinds of people in that portfolio. I suggest that your rec letters, at least 2 of them, if at all possible, come from faculty in your academic program. Certainly some studio faculty will weigh in and carry a bit more weight than others. Those are really my tips and tricks for that. I'm sure that all of you are planning to get your applications to all schools out and all your rec letters. The other thing, and this is kind of a funny one, be very careful that you upload what you mean for us to see. Sometimes we get writings that were for another school you're applying to. So just, take your time and go through this. And, this is the rest of your life. I know that sounds huge, but you need to take your time and take care of when you're applying. And we're here if you have application questions once you get in there and can see everything. Just let us know what you need.
If I could add one thing to that, Robin, I want to, I know there's always a lot of concern and angst about the portfolio, and appropriately so, because you're putting the demonstration of your thinking and your graphical skills and your experience and whatever it is, whether it's architecture or other artistic pursuits, such as, for example, if you have a fine arts background. And that's good. You do want to spend a lot of time on your portfolio. Get other people who've gone through before to look at your portfolio, whether it's a student who's a couple of years older than you, someone who's in a program now, a professor of architecture, or maybe another practicing architect. Get external advisors. But I'd also recommend this book that just came out. It's called Constructing the Persuasive Portfolio, and it's by Margaret Fletcher. She teaches, she's a professor at Auburn, and she also I worked with her for many years, and it's a really good book. It's called Constructing the Persuasive Portfolio. That's a resource just to look at examples of portfolios and portfolio pages that are strong and clean and communicate your ideas. I'm going to look at another question here. It says, does a Bachelor of Architecture degree from an international university qualify for the 2-year MArch program? Robin, you want to take that?
The short answer is yes. The BArch programs in other countries are a professional degree in that particular country. We have BArch degrees here in the US too. Something that you will see when you log into the application, we have a page dedicated to an EESA evaluation by NCARB. And when you get to that point, you have a little bit of a decision to make. While you can apply to a Master of Architecture professional program with us or with another accredited university in the U.S., you may want to consider having your credentials from your country, since that is a professional degree, evaluated by NCARB, and you can go to their website. We give you that in that page, and make a decision whether you might instead like to come to the U.S. and do an MS or an MSUD that do not necessarily lead to licensure. What they will do when they evaluate your transcript is they will look at you against other against the U.S. requirements. And every year I have a few students from other countries who are seeking licensure in the U.S. and have a BArch who come in and they have an NCARB letter with them, and they just need a few courses. They don't need a full Master of Architecture degree. Many people want it anyway, and that's absolutely okay, but that is an option. But yes, the short answer is you're eligible for the 2-year program. Now, you need to understand that not every school in every country has coursework that is equivalent to the U.S. requirements. Over the summer, before you come, we do a deep dive into your transcript, into the courses. I will likely ask you for some course descriptions and syllabi and maybe some work from some of your courses if we're trying to make a decision whether we can place you into the 2-year program, or whether you're going into the 2-year program but might need a little bit of coursework to get you exactly everything that's required in the U.S. In other words, maybe your architecture history didn't meet muster in the U.S. You needed an architecture history course to go along with being in the 2-year program. Most bachelors in the U.S. in architecture take that course. We find that some countries don't teach enough Western architecture in particular. We have faculty who teach in those areas review this for placement. But the short answer is apply to the 2-year program, and we will do an evaluation and let you know if there are additional courses you need to take.
Thanks, Robin. Caleb, you have a question, which is, I graduated in the summer of 2024. Would I still be able to apply for the 3.5 MArch program since it starts in the summer? Yeah, it all comes down to dates. So the summer session that we have lined up in 2024 is what we call a short summer session. So I think, Caleb, send us your dates and we'll figure it out. Okay, that's the best answer. And we work with people. Robin, do you want to just touch just briefly on what a summer short session is and when that starts?
The late short summer session typically starts about the end of June, and it goes through, the grades are typically issued the first week of August. You would be in studio pretty much, and other courses that accompany that, 5 days a week, pretty much all day for those 5 weeks. It's very intense. It's kind of but it's fun. It's kind of getting you into architecture if that's not what you have been in, obviously, in the past. You will encounter some people who have similar degrees, maybe an interiors degree, a landscape architecture degree, as David mentioned, fine arts, painting, sculpture, metalworking. We get all kinds, and we'll even get the business person and the history person. And I just want to say, if I were going into this, that core studio would be where I would want to be. Can you imagine having all those perspectives in one studio while you're working on projects? I just think that's fabulous. Usually our 3.5-year group have a better, richer experience than our 2-year guys. But of course, the 2-year folks have done quite a degree before that. So yeah, I would absolutely want to be in the core.
And Robin, I just want to reiterate, we really welcome a wide diversity of backgrounds to our core program, to the 3.5. If you've studied medicine or history or English or philosophy, it is really to everyone's advantage in our program that we have the widest amount, the diversity of voices and the widest thinking possible. It makes for a really rich experience. So I really encourage you to apply. You don't have to have experience in architecture to bring your intelligence to the discipline of architecture. So I want you to feel confident in that and also know that we welcome you to apply and attend. Sonnet, you're muted. Go ahead.
There was a question for the PhD program. I just wanted to say a couple of things about that. So the question was, do we have to contact the professor or some professor before we start the application? It's highly advisable. It's not necessary. It's not like we will reject your application if you haven't done that. But we expect people who are applying for the PhD program to have a clear idea about what they want to do. And it's always very advisable and very helpful if you are able to reach out to the person and to gauge the interest. Now, it might happen that the person you contact may be a bit busy and may not reply. That doesn't mean you hold back your application, but I think it will show us your intent and it will help your process if you have tried to at least do that.
Thanks, Sonnet. We have a great question from Amber. In studio, in the Masters of Architecture program, our background and non-background students, and I think what that means is our students with architectural training and students with architectural training separated after the first year, or are the 2-year and 3.5-year programs integrated? Great question. They are integrated. So what happens is if you come in without any architectural background, you enter into the core sequence. That's our 1.5-year program. And you get this incredible training and you get up to speed. And then you are joined by 2-year admitted students who already have an architectural background, and you study together for the last 2 years of your experience. So we think that integration is really exciting. And it just keeps things alive and active, and it keeps an influx of experience and perspectives and talent as you grow through the program. So you are not separated, you are intentionally integrated. Next question from Jeremiah: how rigorous would you describe the architecture program? Well, generally, architectural education is rigorous. It's exciting, it's immersive, it kind of rewires your brain. That's the best way to describe it. So architecture, the study of architecture is rigorous, and it is rigorous at Georgia Tech. And that's what makes it exciting. And it launches you into the next chapter of your life. The next question is from Grace. Thank you, Grace. This says, I have a BFA in interior design, and I'm wondering how many architecture-based projects I should have in my portfolio. So I would say, put your best work in your portfolio. It doesn't have to be architecture. It has to be what your best work is. If it's in interior design and that's what your degree is, then show that. If you have some architectural coursework and you think it's demonstrative of your abilities and background, put that in there. We're not going to turn it away if it's good work. So I encourage you to put it in.
Folks, I have to go.
Thank you, Sonnet, for joining us. Daniel, you want to take this next one from Grace? About LEAD AP.
And I think there are multiple points in our curriculum in the IBS sequence IBS 1, 2, and 3, where we're looking for that integration with knowledge. But I think a lot of our students also focus on these aspects.
Yeah, I think you're going to be able to integrate your work a lot. You integrate your experience into your work a lot. Because we do address sustainability. It generally comes in the second year after kind of the foundation of core. And then it's a common theme throughout the coursework and throughout your supporting courses, such as integrated building design, as Daniel mentioned. It plays a role in our design and research studios. And we also have a special course that's called Design and Climate Change that's required. And of course, your experience would play into that directly. Thank you for that question, Grace.
And I forgot to mention the high performance building lab, which is obviously doing research in exactly that area.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here and just go back to the meeting. Okay, let's see. Do we have any other questions that folks would like to ask?
David, did we cover the how rigorous would you describe the architecture program?
We
That's
did,
what- Okay,
but I talked about that, but feel free.
no, it's fine. I just want to make sure we didn't skip it.
No, we didn't. That's one of the joys of architectural education is that rigor, the intensity. Here's a great question. How hands-on would learning be in the program? That's from Jeremiah. Great. Architectural education is inherently hands-on. You are making things with your hands. If you start, for example, in the core program, you are drawing by hand. You're using a pencil. You're using rulers. You are building models by hand. And then as you proceed through the curriculum and you learn advanced tools, which are digitally based, right? Where you're using the computer for example, two-dimensional drawing on the computer or three-dimensional modeling, you're still using your hands as you output that into three-dimensional objects. So making and the manipulation of things with your hands is really fundamental to the program, and it's one of the most rewarding parts of design. Then as you get into your final year or you're in one of the advanced studios, for example, and you're in the digital fabrication lab, you are on the floor of that kind of factory setting with robots and maybe pouring some concrete or using a lathe or using a specialized piece of equipment where you're making large scale things with your hands, perhaps in teams. So hands-on is what architecture is all about in terms of learning how to design. Ikena says, I'm grateful to be on this meeting. Well, thank you for being on it with us. And you hope to be a grad student as soon as I get my requirements all set. Well, we hope you do too, and we encourage you to apply. Another good question. Here we go. This is, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing this. It says Dikshia. I probably mispronounced that and I apologize. Are advanced studios usually done in groups or is it individual? Oh, great question. So, the core work of architecture is often thought of as individual. You're coming up with your own projects at your desk with the guidance of your professor. But really, we found that some of the best work comes out of group work. So we integrate that throughout the curriculum. So for example, in your second year, when you are taking the Portman Prize Studio, which is a semester-long studio with an external critic, you often start off that semester working in groups, 2 or 3 students, and you're doing research about this topic, and you're making drawings together, and you're making models together. And then at some point in the semester, you break off and you build on that work, but individually. So it's really both. It's individual and group. And the reason why that's important is because you have to be able to think critically and make things on your own. And you have to learn that independence, but you have to collaborate with other people. Architecture is not an individual profession. And that collaboration, cooperation, that give and take of working in a team is part of our curriculum and it's part of the profession. Let's see, Robin, would you like to take this next one from Noah about international student with a master's degree?
Sure. Is this the one asking whether or not you could still do an MArch?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes, like I said earlier, you can still do the MARC, and we have lots of international students who want to do that instead of doing an MS or a PhD, or after the MARC, they do an MS as a specialty degree. But yes, you absolutely can.
Okay. All right, we have another question from Grace. Could you maybe discuss exactly how we will go about getting licensed at the end of our time at Georgia Tech? Yeah, so the route for professional licensure is very clear. So you get a degree from an accredited program such as our Master of Architecture program. And then you go through training, what we used to be called an internship or EXP or AXP, and you get hours of experience in a professional setting with a sponsor or a mentor. And that is, you know, a number of hours across all of the different parts of professional practice, whether it's design or contracts or construction observation. And you get those experience in a professional setting. So you've graduated with an accredited degree, then you go work in an office for a set number of hours. It traditionally used to be about 2 or 3 years, and it's always changing a little bit. You can get some of those hours of credit while you're a student, or you can wait to do it until after you've gotten your degree. You're allowed to do it both ways now. After you accumulate the proper number of experience hours in a professional setting under the guidance of a licensed professional architect, then you sit for your exams. And I believe that there are 5 exams now. And some people take them very quickly and see which ones they pass. And others take them, they study, they take one, they study, they take one, and so on. It all depends what works best for you. But that's the sequence: study, experience or internship, and then examination. And then you're an architect. Grace, you have a follow-up question are those hours something I can be clocking now? I work at 2 A&D firms that must be architecture and design firm under 2 licensed architects. Yeah, so what you want to do is go enroll and start tracking your hours at NCARB, NCARB. And the question about whether they're applicable or not will all be answered there. So you want to start your experience record at NCARB.
David, we encourage students to make sure they wait until they have some actual hours to log in. It's our understanding, and we do have someone on our faculty who is a bit of a liaison to help our students with this practice, you know, with getting yourself all set up. And it appears that they maintain your record for about a year, I think, as a student for free. And then after that, you begin to have to pay a little fee every year to keep your transcript for those hours active. So it's not necessary to go in and register yourself until you actually have some hours to put in. But you do need to realize that hours expire. I'm not certain about this date this year, but I know it used to be 6 months.
6 months,
yeah. You know, if you work in June, you've got essentially to the end of the year to log those hours in an account. But we don't recommend you pay for an account if you don't have hours already to start putting in.
That's a great point. Yeah, it used to be that you could, you know, log your hours 4 years later. They don't allow that anymore. You have to do it in a timely manner. All right, I think we still get some messages rolling in with a bit of a delay, so I'm going to wait a little bit before we conclude here. I want to make sure that everybody can ask their questions.
Hey, yes. So I just have one more follow-up question. This is Grace. So should I maybe just be jotting those hours down right now and not actually recording them, but just making sure that I know how many I'm currently working? Or are you saying that I won't be able to even record them, you know, in a year?
You won't be able to put them in your record in a year. So you need to look at how old your oldest hours are. You know, like say you started working for them at the end of last spring and you work through the summer and you're still working. You're going to need to put those early hours in before the end of December.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and you can go to the ncarb.org website, and I think it will outline all of that for you. Don't take my word for that time. I'm telling you what it was the last time I asked this question, and that was not like yesterday. It was this year, but you know, things do change. And
They
when-
do.
Yes.
They do.
Yes.
And
Okay, thank you. Thank
the
you.
other thing is that you have to check and see if the hours that you are accumulating are applicable.
Yeah.
In other words, it used to be that you could only accumulate applicable hours if you had started a degree program. Right? You were in school, you were in a professional degree program, but these things are
makes sense.
changing. So it might be that if you haven't even started your program, those hours are applicable. You just need to do the research about right now how it is.
Actually,
Got it.
I do know something about that. We had this question earlier from an undergrad. We had someone who did some hours when they were in high school before they even got to a Bachelor of Architecture program or a BS Art program. And they were able to reach back. Of course, they were just ending high school, so they were able to reach back and actually count some of those hours. So it's a lot more open as far as what you can count, I think, than it used to be. But there are some constraints that were not always there. Like David said, you can't wait 2 or 3 or 4 years and log them in. So I would visit the NCARB website and see what guidance is there.
Got it. Thank you so much. I will definitely do that.
Okay.
Okay, Jeremiah asks a question. Aside from learning how to apply architecture, how much do students learn about the business networking side of architects? So that's great. So we have in our core curriculum, we have professional practice courses. You have to take, I believe, 2 of them. And that's where you learn those. That's where you have to develop a business plan for a small business. Or you might sit in on a lecture where 4 or 5 practicing architects, and I've done this. I've come to the class and visited and talked about my practice. And that's where you're developing those networking muscles. So that is addressed in our program. But I also would say that some of the things that Robin touched on, such as the practicum program, where you go during spring break and you go and you work in an office, that's an opportunity to learn about that. And also internships that you might have during the summer, and also the career fair that we sponsor. So we see your whole time here as an opportunity to start building those muscles right from when you start, so that it's not an abrupt change or it's something that's unfamiliar to you when you graduate. Jeremiah, great. You're a senior in high school and currently applying. That's great. We welcome you to apply. And I will say, just as we wrap up here, we're going to post this on our website. So if you know someone who missed it, they can go and they can stream it on our website. So this will remain open to folks as an asynchronous show.
And if it's possible, remember our open studio days. I would encourage you to try to come to those if you're close enough to Atlanta, or if you just want to spend a weekend in Atlanta, maybe. Come see us on Friday and have a nice weekend in Atlanta in the fall.
Yeah.
Oh, I also had a question about that. So if we go to one of them, would it benefit us to go to the other ones, or are they all going to kind of be the same thing at each of them?
I think one is good. One is enough. It's about seeing the school, getting a feel for it, looking at the space, and just seeing, meeting some students. They won't be materially different from one Friday to the next. All right. Any final questions? Well, we thank you for joining us, and we hope you've learned something. And we hope that if you are interested in architecture, that you will strongly consider Georgia Tech. We have a lot to offer, and we're excited to consider you as an applicant for our program. It's a great place to be. So we appreciate your time and attention this morning.